Masa, the son of Masayoshi Son, once held the title of the richest man in the world for a brief 3 days. However, he then suffered a personal loss of about $70 billion, the biggest in history, almost overnight. Despite this, he managed to secure a funding worth $45 billion in just a 45-minute meeting, which equates to $1 billion per minute. He is also credited with making the greatest investment ever made. However, many consider him a reckless gambler who treats the economy like a casino and is causing catastrophic damage. Nevertheless, Masa has invested billions of dollars in entrepreneurs purely based on the sparkle in their eyes, making him an enigmatic figure. The majority of the world knows little about him, but his story is inspiring, terrifying, and absolutely insane. Is he the world's most astute tech investor or the luckiest guy on the planet? Masa's grandparents emigrated to Japan from South Korea by hiding on a small fishing boat with no food, no shelter, and unable to speak the language. Similarly, Masa's start in life was bleak. He was considered an outsider in Japanese society because of his heritage, and his childhood classmates threw rocks at him. His father barely made enough to get by and did odd jobs such as raising pigs and selling illegal liquor. From an early age, Masa was determined to build a better life for himself. The bullying he received as a child only made him more determined, and by middle school, he decided on his life plan. He wanted to become Japan's most successful businessman. He idolized a man named Den Fujita, who had brought McDonald's to Japan. Despite being told he was too busy, Masa flew to Tokyo and convinced Den to meet him for 15 minutes to ask for advice. Den recommended that Masa go to America to pursue his business dreams. Masa took Den's advice to heart and, at the age of just 16, went to California to study economics and computer science at the University of California. He needed money and asked his friends if there were any jobs where he could make $10,000 a month but only work 5 minutes a day. His friends thought he was crazy, but Masa believed that the most efficient use of his time was invention. He spent 5 minutes every day coming up with new invention ideas so he could patent them and sell them. Masa's approach to inventing was threefold. First, he searched for solutions to problems in his life, such as a round pencil that kept rolling off the table, which led him to consider a square or hexagonal pencil. Second, he looked at things from the opposite perspective, such as making something big smaller or something red white. Finally, he combined existing things, such as merging a radio with a tape recorder to create a radio cassette player. At the conclusion of the year, Masa had compiled a notebook filled with 250 unique concepts for inventions. After careful consideration, he selected the best idea, a small gadget that could translate text into various languages. Masa then teamed up with a physics professor who agreed to help construct a prototype of the device. Masa spent all his time pitching the product to different companies and paid another Asian student to substitute for him in lectures that he missed. Eventually, a company called Sharp agreed to buy the device's patent for $1.7 million, making Masa a millionaire at the age of only 19. As a side job, Masa began importing Space Invaders arcade machines from Japan into the US, setting them up in bars and restaurants, where they became a massive hit. Within 6 months, Masa had imported over 350 arcade machines and profited over $1 million. He had fantastic entrepreneurial instincts and worked incredibly hard, often sleeping very little, working 7 days a week, and enjoying the process. After graduating, Masa returned to Japan as he had promised his mother. He knew he wanted to use the money he earned in America to build an even more extensive business in Japan. He brainstormed 40 potential businesses, mapped them out, and ranked them based on different metrics. He then created a new company called Softbank, which would distribute computer software. Personal computing was still in its early stages in the early 80s, but Masa was optimistic about the industry, and he believed Softbank could become the top distribution company in Japan, despite having no experience with software. He hired 2 employees to help him and stood on a crate in the office one morning, telling them that Softbank was going to become a billion-dollar company. The employees thought he was crazy and soon quit. At first, Softbank struggled to take off, but Masa kept plowing more money into the business, and eventually, his persistence paid off. Softbank rode the wave of demand in personal computing in the early 90s, and Masa began making audacious business bets, throwing millions of dollars into companies like Yahoo. However, disaster struck when Masa was diagnosed with chronic hepatitis and became bedridden in the hospital. He had just gotten Softbank up and running successfully and now was facing the fact that he might not have long left to live. He had a young daughter and a pregnant wife, and he had taken out loans from the bank to fund the company, knowing they would pull his funding if they found out about his illness. He had to keep up the facade that everything was fine and would sneak out of the hospital to attend company meetings. Thankfully, Masa recovered, but his health scare convinced him that he needed to act even bigger, faster, and crazier since he couldn't take any time for granted. By the mid-90s, Softbank had 800 employees and $1 billion in revenue. Masa took the company public to raise even more money, and he continued to make audacious business bets, solidifying his reputation as a tech pioneer. Masa was in the process of accumulating funds for his war chest, but he never let it sit idle. Instead, he would promptly reinvest it in something new. By the end of the 1990s, Softbank had grown into a massive conglomerate that functioned more like a venture capital fund. Its primary business was no longer sales, but rather the acquisition of other tech businesses that Masa believed in. For example, after a single call with the founder, he invested $400 million into E-Trade in 1998. If you are interested in investing in businesses yourself, you might want to check out our video sponsor, Moomoo. It is a stock trading platform that offers some incredible bonuses for new users. By using the link in the description, you can receive up to 5 free stocks worth up to $3,500 each, absolutely free. It's a no-brainer to sign up because you have nothing to lose. I love Moomoo because not only is it a great platform for buying and selling stocks with zero commission fees, but it also provides research tools to help you make more informed decisions about what to invest in. And yes, you can even trade shares of Softbank on this platform. Whether you're just starting out with investing or you're an experienced investor looking for a great all-in-one platform, Moomoo is the perfect choice. I have never seen any other platform offer such great bonuses, so make sure to use the link in the description now to get your free shares when you deposit any amount. By the end of the 1990s, Masa had invested $3 billion into 800 different tech startups, and Softbank employees were struggling to keep track of them all. Masa was meeting with 200 entrepreneurs every 3 months to find the next big opportunity. Of course, not every investment was a success, but Masa realized that one big winner could mask all the other failures combined. He didn't need to be right with every investment as long as he had a few big successes. In 2000, Masa made what is considered the best venture capital investment of all time. He heard about a Chinese internet company called Alibaba and was impressed with what they were doing. Although the founder, Jack Ma, initially said they didn't need any investment, Masa was persistent. Even though the company only had a few employees, Masa saw a huge potential and said he saw a sparkle in Jack Ma's eyes that he could build something incredible. They agreed to a deal for Softbank to invest $20 million into the company, and that stake would later become worth over $70 billion. That same year, Masa raised the largest Japanese investment fund ever, which he began investing in hundreds of internet companies. He believed the internet was the next big phase of technology that would transform the world. The New York Times even called Masa the Bill Gates of Japan. In fact, for 3 days in the middle of 2000, Masa surpassed Bill Gates as the richest man in the world. But then the dot-com bubble burst, the market crashed, and Masa lost $70 billion, more wealth than any single investor had ever lost in history. If you thought that was going to slow Masa down, think again. He spent the next decade taking even more risks and betting big. In 2001, Masa managed to get into the Japanese broadband business by barging into the telecoms office of the Japanese government and shouting, "This is the end. If you don't help me, I'm going to pour gasoline all over myself and set myself on fire." Masa then launched a broadband service in Japan at half the price of competitors, even though this lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Masa believed would be the next big wave of the internet, the shift to mobiles instead of computers. Thank you for watching the first part of this incredible billionaire story. We've seen how they built their empire from humble beginnings, taking risks and making bold moves that have paid off in ways that are hard to imagine. But this is just the beginning. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, so you don't miss the second part of this amazing story. We'll see you soon.